Illuminati kids, as a non-user, the Twitter stories haven't grabbed me too much, but I found out recently that Twitter is huge in Japan, about 40% of the population using it versus USA 20%. Wow. Interesting what might go down with that during this downturn. I know Yahoo is still a huge digital brand in there, even though it's a totally different company than the original one now. I also wonder how much of the more idiotic Elon stuff makes it through the news pipeline. I mean, Twitter is a disaster. It's a disaster for Elon. And, every now and then I like to pat myself on the back. I think on day one when he announced that he was going to, I was like, I can't wait to see, he is going to regret buying this company more than anything when everybody was freaking out about it. Although I will say he has done an excellent job in making it like a sort of almost like a Disney World for fascists and bigots.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was part of, if he couldn't accomplish making it profitable, at least accomplish it making it a proving ground for the newest Nazi ideas.
Yes, exactly. And there is a court case. Let's go through this a little bit, and maybe we'll have Masnick on. You can find this at TechDirt. This guy, Mike Masnick, who I think was one of those original, was he a black hat hacker? Well, how did his career start? I may be confusing him with someone else, but I think this was years and years ago. But he was writing on
for TechDirt.
For TechDirt on the Twitter files, and basically saying none of the stuff that Taibbi or any of the other Schellenberger and what's her face?
Barry
Weiss. None of these people were being honest in the way they were representing what they were finding.
And we kind of knew that a little given the Mehdi Hassan interview with Matt Taibbi, which we covered when you were out, Sam, where there were discrepancies found by Mehdi Hassan's team in the way that certain organizations were written about, the conflation of a nonprofit with a government agency. And this kind of seems to just buttress that research.
Yes, but it goes even further, because it's saying that the entire relationship in terms of the contacts between the U.S. government, never mind the NGOs and the network of whatever it is, and Twitter, has been completely mischaracterized. And we know that is the way that even Twitter's legal team perceives it. Because Twitter had to make a filing in a lawsuit that Trump had first sort of initiated when he got banned from Twitter. And they reinstituted a filing in the wake of the Twitter files because there were new information that would prove Trump's case. And here is the filing from the Twitter lawyers. The new materials, I'm quoting from the filing, the new materials, that being the Twitter files, do not evince coercion in terms of the government to Twitter because they contain no threat of government sanction premised on Twitter's failure to suspend plaintiffs' accounts. Why don't you see if you can put this up, Bradley? Oh, yeah. As this court already held, coercion requires a concrete and specific government action or threatened action for failure to comply with a governmental dictate. None were directed to Twitter. The point being that it is completely, and now during in the years after 9/11, the FBI, there was a law passed under the USA under the Patriot Act where the FBI could contact librarians. This is, sort of the internet was not what it was. Could contact librarians, both because there was free internet at the libraries, and the theory was that would-be sleeper cells are going to be using the internet from libraries. Not unreasonable, and that the FBI could contact librarians and force them to give records of what books they had taken out, where they had looked, and the librarians weren't even allowed to talk about it. They also could go to phone companies and get their records and compel them to be quiet about it. There is no compulsion evidenced whatsoever in the Twitter files. The FBI, the Homeland Security, whoever it is that is contacting Twitter at any given time is simply flagging stuff that they as a government are worried about, much of it having to do with COVID. None of the FBI's, again, reading from the Twitter filing, none of the FBI's communications with Twitter cited by plaintiffs, that would be the Trump people, evince coercion because they do not contain a specific government demand to remove content, let alone one backed by the threat of government sanction. The emails were phrased in advisory terms, flagging accounts they believe may violate Twitter's policies, and Twitter employees received them as such, independently reviewing the flagged tweets. And we know from the internal communications that they deliberated on these things. Because you had moderators who had seen what had gone on with Twitter, and they were trying to get it right. You can argue that they did it poorly. You can argue that they did it well. It doesn't matter. And let's be clear, it's not just the FBI doing this, and it's not just NGOs doing this. It is, and we never saw these Twitter files, but you can bet. Name your favorite corporation.
Exactly.
Name your favorite airline. Name your favorite phone carrier. Name your favorite, whatever, like, if you've ever seen a tweet criticize some company's service, you can bet your bottom dollar that that company's PR department had a contact at Twitter and said, hey, man, you should take this down because blankety blank blank. And I would bet that in some occasions they did. And the point is, you can like that practice or not, or dislike that practice. I happen to dislike it. But this is not an authoritarian George Orwell 1984 state. It is standard operating procedure. You want to talk about campaigns complaining to Twitter about tweets? I guarantee you, every single media outlet you have ever watched or contemplated watching has heard from those exact same campaigns complaining about this reporter or that reporter or this report or that report or this story or that story. Guaranteed. This has been going. And I'll tell you something. There is no way that those reporters who didn't report on this or who reported on these Twitter files didn't know that.
Sure.
Hadn't been on the receiving end, and maybe in some instances on the giving end. I don't like this profile that you did of me in GQ. I can't believe you did this. I mean, this is the way things work. And to expose like one portion of it and make it seem like it's, we're living in some type of police state because of it is bullshit. It is a fundraiser for themselves. And this is all from Twitter's
filing.
None. Okay. And so independently reviewing and flagged tweets, none even requested, let alone commanded Twitter to take down any content. And none threatened retaliatory action if Twitter did not remove the flagged tweets. The FBI flags cannot amount to coercion because there was, quote, no intimation that Twitter would suffer adverse consequences if it refused. What is more, unlike O'Handley, that is a case they're citing, not one of the cited communications contained a request to take any action whatsoever with respect to any of the plaintiff's accounts. The new materials, again, in terms of Congress, the new materials do not contain any actionable threat by Congress tied to Twitter's suspension of plaintiffs' accounts. And look, the idea that like, you know, a congressperson complains about it and it brings up possible FCC, that government may in fact, because Congress is upset about it, may in fact involve, some new regulation. What about when Congressperson X goes in front of a microphone and says the same thing, which happens on a daily basis? Do you have a problem with Bernie Sanders calling out Amazon? Because it's the exact same dynamic you're talking about. So the whole Twitter files thing was just an opportunity, depending on who was making the complaints, for someone to either move a political agenda about conservatives are so oppressed, or the trans ideology is shutting down everything, or a way of making money and furthering some type of, sort of like notion that we're living in an authoritarian state. Meanwhile, you look at all the book banning. You look at the fact that DeSantis has it literally destroyed one of their colleges down there. It's just...
And let's talk about Twitter. Twitter is currently working with Narendra Modi's fascist government in India to censor criticism. Let's be clear, documented by multiple outlets, happening right now under Elon Musk's watch, also happened in the midst of the elections in Turkey on behalf of Erdogan. Like, that is an actual free speech entanglement. And that's happening. And there were clearly reports, though, of foreign governments being able to influence Dorsey's Twitter as well. Let's not put that aside. But Musk's core brand proposition is undercut by basically every action that he's taken on this front, especially since he chose to tie himself to these bogus Twitter files. It's an unbelievable display of shamelessness, given how there's just absolutely no evidence backing the central claim that was advertised here.
All right. Well, I mean, that is, I'm happy to never talk about the Twitter files again. But, there is a... I
mean, there were hearings based on this. It's not nothing. Like, no. This was a Republican political project, aided and abetted by Matt Taibbi and other luminaries that we discussed earlier.